Okay, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Manggcast. Today is June 27th, 2015. And I've got a couple things to talk about this time. Not a whole lot, surprisingly. I think today's show is going to be a bit shorter, a bit more jumbled, and a bit more off the cuff. Although it's always off the cuff, so it doesn't really matter. But anyways, we don't actually have a whole lot of video game news to talk about. I'm going to talk about a couple things, couple subjects, and then we got some movie stuff to talk about, but I guess we'll just get right into it. So, as far as video games go, this was the week after E3, which means that there's not a whole lot of discussion, news going on, things like that. Because everything big was announced at E3. That's kind of how it works. So if there's any news, it's kind of for smaller indie titles and ports and just things like that. Things that nobody even cared to mention at E3. So I don't really care to talk about it too much. But what I do want to talk about is the stuff that was absent from E3. The big stuff that was absent from E3. And that goes for basically Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo. Now, I kind of already talked about what was absent from Nintendo, and that was, that was good games, is what that was. No, that was really more Wii U stuff, and I kind of explained why that was. I think that they are preparing for the NX and all that, and that's going to be next year, and Zelda launch titles and all kind of that stuff. But also the fact that the 3DS is where their money is, it's where they make their money, that's what they care about, because people in Japan, from my understanding, it's not a huge island, there's a bunch of people there, they all have kind of small apartments and things like that, small homes, and so they don't really buy into big television sets and stuff like that, like us Americans do. They keep it on the down low. And so, to really enjoy Xbox One, PS4, PC gaming, all that, you need some big rigs. And so they don't really go for that. They go for the downsize, and that's things like the 3DS. And so, of course, they love Nintendo. Nintendo is huge in Japan. I would say it's bigger in Japan than here. And so it kind of just makes sense. 3DS, Nintendo, all good for over there in Japan. And Nintendo knows that. And I made a comment to my brother. I don't know if it's true. I just said it. I say stuff. I said that if Japan were to just blow up, which is not probably politically correct, if it were to disappear for some reason, I don't know how long Nintendo would really last with their current strategy. Because they're huge. Japan, their gaming culture is either hentai games or Nintendo. Microsoft and Sony have never really had a big footprint there, and they probably never will. So I can understand, okay, they got the 3DS, it's working for them. I got no issues with the 3DS. I've had some enjoyable experiences on it. I'm okay with it. I'm not a huge fan of mobile gaming in general, but there you go. So I can understand the Wii U it's going to be forgotten about fairly soon. But then Microsoft. What was missing from Microsoft's conference? You may have already figured this out. I'll let you think about it for a few seconds. Take a guess. What did they not really mention at all? The answer is the Kinect. Where was it? What happened? What happened to the Kinect? You remember? I don't know if that was last year or 2 years ago, something like that. It may have been last year, but last year, 2 years ago, when Xbox One was coming out, Kinect was huge. Kinect was Microsoft's future, man. Every single Xbox One was being sold with a Kinect. It was going to be vital to the system's lifeblood because everybody was going to have one. All the developers would know everybody's going to have a Kinect. So you can design games based around that fact. And then the world said, you know what, Microsoft, go screw yourself with your stupid Kinect. We don't like it. And Microsoft's like, okay, we respect your opinion. and we respect that we want money. So we're not going to include the Kinect with the Xbox One anymore. Hooray! Everybody cheered because it was a lower price point, and they didn't care about the Kinect, so it was just win-win. Unfortunately, the side effect then is that nobody developed anything for the Kinect because, well, there was no guarantee that everybody had a Kinect, but more so because nobody really cares about the Kinect. It's the same thing like the PlayStation Eye, or the PlayStation Move, or basically every camera that Sony has come out for any PlayStation. You know, things like that. It's gimmicky to the max. And when the Kinect was first announced way back when, and it was shown off, yeah, it was glitchy at the time. I remember, you know, if you wanted to see what the bottom of an Avatar's shoe looked like, good luck with that. But when it was first announced, I was impressed because I was like, whoa, look at this. This is a new way to play games. This is kind of innovative. We haven't seen this before. This could be cool. But like a lot of gimmicks that seem cool at the start, they're not cool. And they kind of fade away from existence. And so I guess that's what's happened to the Kinect. Now, they've said that they are still developing. This is in private, you know, when questions are asked. They said that there are still coming out with games for Kinect. It's going to be coming out and being available kind of for the Windows 10 and all that. And there are things being worked on internally. But I'd say pretty much the Kinect is probably dead. And I don't think anybody's going to shed too many tears. I think the biggest thing that Kinect had going for it is the kind of the community for it, the user community for it, that we're developing much more innovative applications for it on the PC. But really, even that, looking at something more akin to virtual reality is much more interesting than Kinect. Not that the Kinect has no interesting, useful applications, but I think it was a very short-lived thing, and I'm okay with it being gone. So that's what was missing from Microsoft's conference, but nobody really cared. What was missing from Sony's conference? Go ahead. Think about it. Take a guess. What was missing from Sony's conference? The answer was the Vita. Remember the Vita? Remember that was a thing? That was their answer to the 3DS. And I own one. I own a PlayStation Vita. I could not tell you where it is right now, or where it has been in the last 2 years. 3 years. I don't know if I've played it since I bought it. But like I said, I'm not a mobile gamer. But even then, I played my 3DS a whole bunch more than my Vita. So what went wrong? What was wrong with the Vita? It was a capable system. It had, twin sticks. It had all the controls that you need. The graphics looked all right. It seemed like everything we wanted in a handheld system. But why did it fail compared to the 3DS? I would say probably killer apps. The 3DS just had a better lineup of games, and so that brought more people to buy the system, which promotes more developers into looking into it and making games for it, which brings more games to it and more people buying it, and so on and so forth. Once a system kind of stagnates, aka like the Wii U, it's a very quick slope, downward slope. That's not to say that the Vita doesn't have a few good games, that there's not some enjoyment to be found on the Vita, but if I asked anybody to name, like, what's the best game on the PlayStation Vita, unless you're a video game journalist, I'm not sure if you'd have an answer. I wouldn't even have an answer, because all I played on it, I think, was a bit of the Uncharted game and Rayman Origins, or whatever, Legends, whatever the hell it was called. That's about it. They kind of had something going with, like, PlayStation 1 ports, but the PSP could do that, so that's not really anything. it just never really had a killer app. Whereas if I ask the same question for 3DS, a lot more people are going to give me an answer. You know, you had Fire Emblem, you have Monster Hunter, you have Super Smash Brothers, you have Animal Crossing, you have the Marios, you have the Zelda, you have all of Nintendo's big franchises that are done fairly well on the system. Whereas Sony doesn't really, they just don't have that same thing. And I know I normally knock on Nintendo, but I can admit that they've done well with the 3DS. So that's what was missing from Sony's conference. But again, it's not really a big deal. It's missing for a reason, because nobody cares about it. I guess the question then is, are they ever going to make another foray into the mobile arena? That's a tough one. I mean, Nintendo's got it so on lockdown. I mean, anybody that wants a mobile console, you're going to be pointed to the 3DS. And then, you know, the whole kind of tablet phone thing, that's now a thing. So, I mean, I've definitely played more games on my tablet and or my phone than my Vita. Just because, you know, it's always there. The Vita's a bit kind of bulky. It doesn't fold. It's just like you got to put it in a backpack, and it's just So I don't know if they'll ever make another mobile system. They can live without it. Microsoft's never really done any of that nonsense, and they've done fine. So I would say the Vita might be the swan song for Sony mobile systems, but not a very good one. All right, so that's kind of what was absent from the big conferences. And like I said, they were all absent for their own reasons, mostly because nobody cares. Although I think some people probably do care about the Wii U. I mean, even I could say I care about the Wii U because I did buy it. I bought a Wii U in the hopes that it would have some good games. Now, granted, I kind of bought it just for Monster Hunter. But, yeah. I guess the other thing you could say missing from Nintendo's conference or from their digital event is third-party games. Yeah, not a whole lot. I mean, there was like the Shin Megami nonsense. There's like Fire Emblem. I think Fire Emblem is a third-party game, but it's only on Nintendo systems. Like they're not into any, like, nothing else. Like, it's all so isolated. It's almost like they're xenophobic. No, I'm not going to go into that discussion. But, yeah, so I think that's enough about E3. But the other topic for video games I want to discuss is virtual reality. And I'm at a disadvantage for this discussion, and really I probably shouldn't be talking about this at all, because I have yet to experience any form of the modern-day virtual reality headsets. I'm not a journalist. I'm not in any position. I don't go to any conferences or anything like that. So all I can really do is read and watch videos and make a statement from that perspective. And normally that might be not too bad. But the problem with virtual reality is that to really discuss it, you need to experience it. But I guess I can give some general thoughts on the whole concept. I'm going to be really only talking about the big three virtual reality headsets that are coming out, and I'm not going to be talking about any of the ones that involve putting your phone into like a headset and then putting it in front of your face. Not that those can't really give a similar experience, but I feel like the big three are all based around gaming, which is what I'm most interested in. So the big three headsets are the Oculus Rift from Oculus, the HTC Vive, which is being done by HTC and Valve, and then the Morpheus, Project Morpheus from Sony. So the Oculus Rift is, of course, the granddaddy of the modern virtual reality headset. And it kind of sparked the interest in like, oh, this is going to be a thing now. We're bringing back virtual reality. And they had a gigantic Kickstarter, made millions of dollars, and it's really at the forefront of everything. And so in 2014, last year, Oculus was bought out by Facebook for millions and millions of dollars. And a bunch of people kind of groaned about this and said, oh, Facebook, they ruin everything. You're going to have to mandatory log into your Facebook account before you can use the Oculus. All sorts of bullshit like that, which is not likely to be true at all. But really, the big point of it was now that Oculus has a serious amount of funding. I mean, their Kickstarter made like $2.4 million. And Facebook bought them for $400 million. I mean, it's a big difference. And so the Oculus Rift is supposed to come out sometime early next year. And people have been testing these extensively. They've had developer kits out in the wild for ages now. You can find many, many videos of the Oculus Rift being tested. And it's gone through a whole bunch of iterations that have continued to improve it. The HTC Vive is a bit more recent of an announcement and project and things like that. I don't know how long it's been worked on. And this is being developed by HTC in direct collaboration with Valve to really make it a video gaming experience. And so Valve kind of brings their expertise in the video gaming world to it, and they really want to make it part of their whole Steam VR thing, and they want to be at the forefront of virtual reality. And I don't know how much I trust Valve nowadays. I mean, really, Valve does not put out many games in recent days. They're kind of past that. They're a bit more of a juggernaut of the PC industry than really just a games developer. So I don't know how much really input they put into it. I'm sure they have some bright guys over at Valve. I know they have a lot of insights into the video game community and experiences and things like that. So, okay. And then finally we have the Sony Morpheus. And this was announced last year. And people didn't really know what to... It wasn't really like a gigantic, breathtaking announcement. It's just like, okay, you're making a headset. And I don't think... I don't know what other people think. I know what I think. I know when I first heard about it, it was just kind of like, oh boy, another gimmick. Because Sony has had a lot of these. Especially since they announced that it might utilize the whole Move controllers and things like that. And let me tell you, the PlayStation Move... that was a bit of a failed investment, if you ask me. We don't have a whole lot of details about the Sony Morpheus. They didn't really talk about it much at their conference. And especially if it comes out, if it's released, as they say, in the first half of 2016, they might not get another E3 conference to really show it off before it's released, so it might have a bit quieter of a release than they want, but we'll see. Now, the benefit of the Sony Morpheus is that it's being developed specifically for a game console. Now, I know a lot of people hate on consoles, they hold back PCs, and all sorts of their peasantry, and blah, 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 but the benefit of that is that the developers and designers and all that working for games for the Morpheus and all that, they know that everybody that uses the Morpheus is going to be using the exact same hardware. And there is a benefit to that. There's no variabilities there. There's nothing like that. Everybody's using the exact same shit. You can tailor make an experience. With the Oculus, with the Vive, some people have better rigs than others, and from what my understanding is, the Oculus, well, the Oculus especially, it requires quite a computer to be able to run very smoothly and with high frame rates and things like that, you need a good computer. And so I think much more so for virtual reality than just playing a game, frame rate skips and things like that just really, really lessen the experience. Because the whole idea is that you're immersed in this virtual reality. So having lag or things like that or glitches is just going to be, ugh. So the Morpheus, in my opinion, stands a better chance of combating that by, developing for a set system where everybody's going to have. You know what your limits are. You can work with them. People that are developing for the Oculus Rift, there's a lot of variations there. There's a lot of variables. So that's Morpheus's benefit. Now Morpheus's drawback is the open source community is not going to be nearly as prevalent as for the Oculus Rift. The Oculus Rift already has a hardy, loyal community, even with the dev kits. So there you have the big three. So to recap then, and I'm not going to go into specifications or really anything like that. I'm not going to dive into depths. But the HTC Vive is expected to launch first in November of this year. They wanted to get right out the gate, which tells me that they've probably been working on this for a while. And then the Oculus Rift and the Morpheus are sometime in early 2016. So the HTC Vive is going to be the consumer's first chance at really experiencing modern virtual reality. The question is, do you pick up an HTC Vive when it comes out, or do you wait? Well, I mean, general rule of thumb, unless you absolutely have to have it, you wait. But it's never that easy, is it? Because, if you're like me, you kind of you like new shit. You like new gadgets. You like new experiences. This is, whether it's a fad or not, there's a lot of time, money, and effort being put into by a lot of people into this experience, into this virtual reality thing. So whether it's a fad or not, it's a big deal. And the fact that it's a big deal makes me want to try it out. The HTC Vive, I don't think has a price, which is kind of surprising considering it comes out in 5 months or so, supposedly. But, dev kits for Oculus Rift and things like that cost like $300 some dollars. And I think that's what a lot of people would expect to pay for this, which is a substantial amount of money. I mean, you can buy consoles for that much. This is just an accessory. And again, this is where it kind of is unfortunate that I have yet to try a virtual reality. But keep in mind, that's most people. Most people will not be able to try virtual reality before they have the chance to buy it. So spending $300 or so, $350, whatever, sight unseen on an accessory for your computer is daunting, because as I understand it, it's something that you really just need to experience to know whether you like it or not. So I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of returned HTC Vives. I don't know. It's hard to say. I'll probably end up buying a Vive when it comes out, just because I do love the new experiences and things like that. And the HTC Vive has the benefit of being the only one available, again, as far as we know, the only one available around Christmas time. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. I guess the question is virtual reality, how big is virtual reality going to be? Is this a fad that's going to revolutionize video gaming as we know it? Or is it going to be just another gimmick like it always has been in the past. I think we're at the point where if virtual reality fails again, it will never be a thing. We will move on to immersed reality, akin to something like The Matrix or Ready Player One or something like that, where it's... Because really, all these headsets, it's not really virtual reality. You're basically just putting screens up to your eyeballs. It's not really a reality. It's just a video game that's very close to your face. Which kind of diminishes its grandeur, I suppose. Again, I wish that I have experienced it so I could give a better perspective on it. I could say, you know what, this is going to be a big thing. You guys don't know what it's like. It's incredible. I don't know. I just don't know. I know that there have been so many positive reactions to virtual reality, but that doesn't really mean anything. That doesn't say anything about its potential longevity. So, yes. I think for this to really work, they really need to work on tactile experiences. They need to work on more like a haptic glove. There needs to be more feedback to push it beyond just, yeah, it's a couple screens next to your eyeballs. I know that people have said that when they've played games, certain games on these virtual reality headsets and things like that, they feel like they're there. Like they get... It messes with your head on a level that we've never really experienced before. And that's definitely cool, but if you're still just holding onto a controller, that takes away from it, I think. So, I think that might decide more of the future of it, is if we can get into the whole haptic feedback and involving our other senses than just our eyes, to further trick our brain into what we're experiencing, then I think we might be able to more easily leapfrog from this onto more immersed reality. And then once we get into that, into the kind of the holodecks and stuff like that, then that's kind of the future of, well, the future of technology, more or less. So yeah, we're either seeing a fad or the beginning steps of the future of technology. And that's pretty exciting, either way. I mean, there's definitely some exciting stuff coming out, not just in the gaming world, but for all of technology, of how we experience digital world. The other thing then that I didn't really talk about is the HoloLens, which is not really virtual reality, it's more augmented reality, and that's kind of an entirely different discussion. They're similar, yes, but I can much more see the benefit to core gamers for virtual reality than I can see for HoloLens. They need to show off way more of HoloLens before I'm convinced of that. Showing off a cool Minecraft demo is like, okay, that's nice, but how much am I really going to do that? I mean, yeah, I can see HoloLens being used as kind of like an accessory type thing, like a supplement type thing to another type of game, like I think that might have been Battlefield 4 or something like that, where everybody else was playing the game normally and then one player was using like an overhead view and they were like the commander and stuff like that. I could see maybe the HoloLens being used for something like that, but I don't know. It's bordering so much on gimmicky that it's hard to really make a speculation. So yeah, I guess I thought I would talk about that because I didn't have much else to talk about. Let's move on then to movie news. Let's talk about Mr. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson first. I think in the two Manngcasts ago, in the first Manngcast, I talked about the Big Trouble in Little China remake or reboot. And I talked about how that was, of course, a bad idea, but I said it didn't really matter because time would forget about it. And apparently everybody that has seen Big Trouble in Little China has said it's going to be a terrible idea. And Dwayne Johnson, of course, he's not oblivious of the internet. He's been on there, and he's read what people have said about it, which has got to be just an unfortunate thing to read. It's like, your idea's shit, you're shit, stop it. So, he put out a little, he said something about this in response. He said, I'll quote, "I loved reading the reactions from the fans, that they were so polarized. I'm the same way. My response is, know that I come to the project with nothing but love and respect for the original, which is why we want to bring on John Carpenter." First of all, I don't know how polarized the reactions were. I think the only polarity here was between people that had an ounce of common sense and people that were just the Rock fanboys and girls through, like, they will watch Dwayne Johnson sit on the toilet and shit for an hour. And really, I don't think we can really trust those people. So, I don't know how polarized it was. He says, know that I come to the project with nothing but love and respect for the original. You really don't. And I hate to be the kind of guy that says how another person feels. But either he's lying or he's delusional. Because anybody that loves the original of almost anything does not want to see it being remade or rebooted. And I don't know if he either doesn't realize or he does realize and he doesn't care that he is not the right fit to lead in Big Trouble in Little China. He's not Jack Burton. And I don't know if he doesn't realize or if he doesn't care. Probably he doesn't care, because I'm sure he read enough opinions about how he's the worst choice for that. And so he says he wants to bring on John Carpenter. I don't know in what aspect, because really, most likely is they could just get him as a producer. They could say, produced by John Carpenter. And that would probably fool a few people. John Carpenter, however, he spoke about this. And he said, I'm ambivalent about a remake. On the other hand, it depends on how much they pay me. He says, I mean, I guess all he really needs to say. Big Trouble, the original, was not really a box office hit at all, because it was pretty strange. But let's look at John Carpenter. I mean, in the 80s, 70s, this guy was pretty big. I mean, he did Halloween. I mean, that's enough right there. He did Escape from New York. He did The Thing. Big Trouble in Little China. They Live. And then in the 90s, he pretty much did almost nothing. The only thing I really care about from him in the 90s is like In the Mouth of Madness, because that's great. And then kind of really nothing. He did Ghosts of Mars in 2001, which I'm a fan of, but I know almost nobody else is. Because it's just... It's a weird movie. It's a weird movie, but I like it. And then after Ghosts of Mars, he did basically nothing. For 10 years, he did nothing. Like, he directed nothing. And then in 2011, he made a movie called The Ward, which starred Amber Heard, I believe. And I watched it, and then I completely forgot about it because it was really just nothing. It was like it was a bargain bin horror movie. It wasn't a Mangs movie, but it was just nothing special whatsoever. And it's like this guy, he's pretty much done. He's lost his touch. He's over. And so I'm not sure if I would even want John Carpenter to direct the Big Trouble in Little China remake. I don't think nobody is good forever. Like nobody stays consistent for their entire career. It's just doesn't happen. He made incredible movies. Everyone will always respect him for things like that, for things like The Thing and They Live and Halloween. Yes, but nowadays, move on. So I can see him saying if they pay him a bunch, he'll do it, but otherwise, whatever. So I don't know. I spoke my piece about the Big Trouble thing in the other video, in the other podcast, so it's just funny because if this guy, if Dwayne is a big fan of the movie, you'd hope that he's also a big fan of John Carpenter in general. And so there is a movie of John Carpenter's that could be absolutely rebooted, and I think would be maybe even benefited by a reboot, that would be fairly still relevant to today's culture, that The Rock would make a much better fit for the lead part, and that's They Live. I mean, think about it. You have an ex-wrestler who's a badass, who could star in a movie about, like, overbearing, subversive government culture, like, all that kind of stuff. And it would be perfect. Like, Rowdy Roddy Piper was not like him and Jack Burton, completely different characters. And I like They Live. It's a pretty damn good movie, but it's also, I don't think it holds up as far as pacing and things like that. I don't think it holds up as well as it could nowadays. That movie I would much rather see rebooted, just to see how it would go, than Big Trouble. Big Trouble is unique in every single way. They Live, not quite as much. But, yeah, I mean, nobody's gonna convince Dwayne Johnson otherwise. So, the other article that I want to talk about, related to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, is that he is apparently headlining a live-action adaptation of the arcade game Rampage. Yeah, Rampage. That was the game. Some of you may not remember. Some of you may have never heard of this game. This was an arcade game, and then it was put on some consoles and things like that, in which a giant lizard, a wolf, I think, something like that, and then a werewolf, I think it was a werewolf, and then a King Kong lookalike. And you got to play as one of them, and you would just destroy buildings and eat people. And the military would come, and you'd fight them off, and you'd eventually die. It was very arcadey, but it was fun. I'm a fan of Rampage. And that's it. That's the whole game. They're just destroying buildings and eating people. And they want to make a live-action adaptation starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. They made a movie out of Battleship, so I guess I can't really say much, but I'm just very curious as to what The Rock would do in this movie. Like, would he certainly wouldn't be one of the monsters, right? That would just be corny as shit. So he'd have to be just a guy that takes down these 3 giant monsters. It's just, that's so weird. I can't believe that that's what they're going. Of all the video games, of all the properties that you can make a film out of, you go to that. Like, the Uncharted movie is still really struggling to get made. And that seems like so obvious for a movie. But now you want to make a movie that will probably get made, because it's The Rock, of Rampage. It's just utterly ridiculous. And it really makes me laugh, because I can just picture a YouTube video being put out by Mr. Uwe Boll. I can just picture it in my head. He'd just be like, "Hello, my name is Uwe Boll, and I have a simple message for all of you, and that's fuck you all. I heard you Americans wish to make a movie of Rampage, starring your Mr. Dwayne Johnson, and I say fuck you. I've been making video game movies for years, and nobody cares. And I put out Postal and Blood Rain, and none of you care about that. And I make Rampage movie, and nobody care. And I make Rampage 2, and nobody care. And I tried to make Rampage 3, and nobody care. So fuck you all, and fuck your American movies, and fuck your Rock Johnson." Just, oh man, that's really funny. Because if America makes video game related movies, then they're fine. But Uwe Boll just can't catch a break. So I don't know. That's utterly ridiculous. That's probably the craziest news of the entire week. But there are other video game movies are becoming a bigger thing with a lot more potential. I mean, we have a Warcraft movie coming out, which looks, the CGI at least looks really good. We'll see if the actual movie's good. We've got Assassin's Creed, supposedly like a Splinter Cell movie at some point. But then we also have some bullshit. We got some bullshit. Adam Sandler has to mess everything up with pixels. Good God. Let's move on. Star Wars Force Awakens comes out this year. Star Wars Episode 7. And analysts, or unanalysts, either way, is predicting that this movie will make $1.95 billion at the box office. Which is a pretty crazy amount of money. And I don't think I've really talked about Star Wars 7 much. I've seen the trailer. I know some basic details about it. I think a lot like Fallout 4. I compare it a bit to Fallout 4, because it's something that's like I'm hesitantly excited about. It's probably, it's going to be more Star Wars. It's going to be more Star Wars, which could be good, could be terrible. I think the biggest benefit that the movie has is that George Lucas isn't involved at all. Which is sad, because, George Lucas back in the day, hell of a visionary, hell of a director, hell of a writer. But he screwed himself so hard. He screwed the pooch, man. And it's sad because Star Wars has just a really incredible universe tied to it. Thanks to, definitely thanks to George Lucas, of course, but also thanks to a lot of other creative people over the years that have expanded it. Now, I know that they've wiped out a lot of the expanded universe stuff, that it's not really canon, but it's all still part of the whole thing, it's all like J.J. Abrams and stuff like that. It's all part of, I'm sure, his head and things like that when he's directing the movie, who's the writer and all that kind of stuff. It's a really incredible world. So I expect fully well that it will make $1.95 billion. I'm sure it will be the biggest movie of the year easily. But I guess the question is this going to be like James Bond? Is it going to be a series that never really ends? I think it's definitely possible. There are kids nowadays. There are, 7-year-old kids that know all about Star Wars. there's just that own a bunch of Star Wars merchandise. That just, I've seen all the movies or whatever, like it's such a juggernaut of science fiction at this point. I think it will be just part of culture for many, many years. So, I don't envy J.J. Abrams, that's all I say. That's all I can really say. That's a hell of a lot of pressure I think it's more pressure than directing a James Bond movie, honestly. Because James Bond movies, there's been so many of them. People are kind of in their own camps, and it's just like... Quantum of Solace came out, and nobody liked it, but it just, okay, it's part of the series now, you just keep rolling with it. Star Wars, it's at the point where there's only 6 of them out there. Some of them are good, some of them are incredible, some of them are just dog shit. So it could go in any direction, and J.J. Abrams is the first man to take over it, really, since without George Lucas. So a lot of pressure there. I can't really say. I like the trailer. I've liked J.J. Abrams' projects, some of them in the past. He was a logical choice, I think, to direct it. Star Trek did very well for itself in both as a science fiction movie and as kind of bringing Star Trek back into popular consideration. He did well for himself with that, so it was a logical choice. I think he will do all right. I'm sure it'll be a fine movie. And really, in my opinion, Star Wars can really go up from here. So, I didn't really have a lot to say about that. I just saw that article that it was going to make a shitload of money. I thought I would talk about Star Wars. Independence Day. Independence Day 2 now has an official title. Independence Day Resurgence. You see what I'm saying about how nobody likes to number their sequels anymore. It's just that's so out of fashion at this point. And it's not like it's just so difficult for me to think like that. That there might be somebody out there that sees Independence Day Resurgence and they don't realize that it's a sequel. Is that actually possible? For someone to look at that title, be like, look at this movie. It's a new science fiction movie coming out. It's just I can't imagine being that ignorant. But I guess it's so out of style to just say Independence Day 2. Because over the years, we've had so many numbered sequels that have just become shit. And there's been so many jokes made where it's just if you number your sequel, it's automatically inferior. Where if you put a subtitle on your sequel, it's almost like it's its own thing. So the plot synopsis is: using recovered alien technology, the nations of Earth have collaborated on an immense defense program to protect the planet. But nothing can prepare us for the aliens' advanced and unprecedented force. Only the ingenuity of a few brave men and women can bring our world back from the brink of extinction. And the release date is June 24th, 2016. Why not July 4th? Because go screw yourself, that's why. I don't know what day July 4th is next year. It could be on a Monday or something. So maybe they didn't want to do that. But June 24th? Why? That's so stupid. Anyways. So the cast list is, I'll just read it off. Liam Hemsworth, Jeff Goldblum, Bill Pullman, Judd Hirsch, Vivica A. Fox, Brent Spiner, Charlotte Gainsbourg, Jesse Usher, Micah Monroe, and Celia Ward. So returning from the original is Jeff Goldblum, Bill Pullman, and Vivica A. Fox. There might be some other ones, but those are names I recognize. And then Roland Emmerich is directing again. So I love to see Jeff Goldblum back. That's very good. I'm very excited to see that. He's just... Who's better than Jeff Goldblum? Come on. And I'm a big fan of Bill Pullman, so I like that. Although he's got to be pretty old at this point. And then Vivica A. Fox is returning. But Will Smith is not. Now, I remember, this may have been an old Manggcast where I talked about this way back, like last year or something like that, where they said that Will Smith was not going to be in Independence Day Resurgence because he was too big of a star. Well, it was Independence Day 2 back then. He was too big of a star. And I thought how bullshit that would be. That just sounded like such bullshit. So now, Roland has discussed it again as to why he's not reappearing. He says that Will Smith initially was very excited about returning to Independence Day. And that would have kind of a father-son aspect to it. And Jesse Usher is apparently playing the older version of his son, Dylan. And it has Vivica A. Fox in it, so it'd kind of be almost like a family thing. And, but then, as Roland Emmerich says, After Earth happened. And Will Smith didn't want to do any sort of science fiction, father-son bullshit because of how god freaking awful After Earth was. He didn't say that. I'm saying that, but we all know that's what he meant. But he also says he had to also go into this and say that if they put Will Smith in, he would be the star. He would be the star of Independence Day Resurgence. And that's true. I mean, he was definitely the biggest name. I mean, we all love Jeff Goldblum, but we can't argue Will Smith is a bigger star. So he would be the big star in the movie. But since they don't have him in there, now they can write it as kind of an ensemble thing. Where, you know, there's no one big star. It's kind of just like all over the things with different people doing different things. And it's like, sure. I think you're just saying this because you wanted Will Smith. Because that's money in the bank. And now you don't have Will Smith. But Will Smith, I don't think is as big as he once was. I mean, we can thank stuff like After Earth for doing that. Also, maybe I wonder if secretly Jaden Smith is maybe a reason for all that. Like, Will Smith wanted to do it, but he's like, I'll only do it if Jaden Smith can play my son. They're like, no, your son's shit. Shut up. He's like, I'm out of here. Come on, Jaden. We'll go stare at a mirror together. I don't know. I have no idea. All we know is the official story. So, coming out then next June, Independence Day Resurgence. I'm sure it's just going to be some standard science fiction alien invasion nonsense. But it does have Jeff Goldblum in it, and I think that's why everyone will see it. I don't know. Resurgence. God damn it. That's so terrible. Alright. Then, let's talk about some comic book stuff. Let's talk about the Hulk. So, in 2003, Ang Lee directed a movie starring Eric Bana named Hulk. A lot of people didn't like this movie. I was not one of those people. I don't care what you say. I liked Hulk. I like Eric Bana. I thought it was kind of like psychological. It had its corny bullshit. Yeah. But I liked it. Because it came out when I was 13, alright? I was 13, and I didn't know a whole great deal about the Hulk when that movie came out. And I saw this shit, and there was just this giant-ass green dude just tearing ass all over the place, and I thought it was badass, alright? So go screw yourselves. I liked it. Then, 2006, I want to say. I definitely want to say that. Maybe it was a little bit. Maybe it was. I might have been 2008. Whatever. Later 2000s, they made another Hulk movie called The Incredible Hulk. This had absolutely nothing to do with Ang Lee's Hulk movie, and Bruce Banner was recast to Edward Norton. And I did not like that movie as much. I think it's okay. I've seen it a couple times. I'm not a huge fan of Ed Norton. He just always seems so damn smug. But it still had some cool Hulk action, so I like it for that. But I'm still an Ang Lee Hulk fan. But both of these movies were, or at least, well, I guess more importantly, the Incredible Hulk was distributed by Universal, and it was produced by Marvel. And back then in 2007, 2008, whatever it was, that was okay, because Iron Man hadn't come out yet. Marvel was not nearly as big as they were, so it's just like, okay, we'll just have Universal put it out there, and we'll make some money, maybe. Then, Marvel became a goddamn juggernaut. Unfortunately, Universal still had distribution rights for Hulk movies. And apparently, that is why we have yet to see a standalone Mark Ruffalo Hulk movie. Because Universal has the distribution rights. So it's been recently kind of clarified that what Universal has is the rights of first refusal for distributing a Hulk movie. So that means that if Disney, Marvel, whatever, if they make a Hulk movie, they have to go to Universal, who has the option of distributing it. If they refuse, they would not refuse. Let's be clear here. They would never refuse this. If they did, then Disney and Marvel could do whatever they wanted with it. But they wouldn't refuse, so Universal would get a nice chunk of the profits. So that's why they haven't done it. However, Marvel / Disney, whatever, still has complete rights to the character. So they can put Hulk in anything they want, but the movie cannot be about Hulk. Or I guess more specifically, the loophole is that the character's name cannot be in the title. So Hulk cannot be in anywhere near the title, which just basically means that the movie can't be about him. Now, Mark Ruffalo, who I'm a fan of, actually, as Bruce Banner. I think he's a good Bruce Banner. He seems to play a very intelligent type guy. I like that. He has expressed interest in making a Planet Hulk / World War Hulk, whatever, movie. But this really, I mean, you'd have to put, both of those have Hulk in the name. So maybe they could do some things where they could, I don't know what title they could come up with. Who's to really say? It's tricky. It's definitely tricky. So in a perfect world, I guess, in the upcoming Doctor Strange movie, the Hulk would have kind of a part in it, and there would be a bit where, you know, Doctor Strange has to exile Hulk from the planet for doing some bad shit, a la Planet Hulk. And then there would be a Planet Hulk movie. It would probably be more World War Hulk than Planet Hulk, I think. And that might be more of an ensemble thing, which would be pretty cool. I mean, it would be really cool, actually. But I've been reading a bunch of comments, and a lot of people are saying that the Hulk is not actually a good choice for starring in a movie. He's better as a supporting character. Now, I'm a fan of the Hulk, actually. He's one of the few Marvel characters that I really like. Big fan of the Hulk. Again, probably thanks to Ang Lee's Hulk movie when I was 13. So, I don't know. I kind of disagree, because I want to see more standalone Hulk movies, because I think he's awesome. But I do find that he is also a good supporting character. I just wish he was kind of... I want to see more of like a Planet Hulk type Hulk, you know? In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Bruce Banner is very eloquent. He's very nuanced. You know, there's a lot of psychological torment that he goes through, and he's divided, and, you know, all kinds of that. Bruce Banner is good, but the Hulk is just, when he becomes the Hulk, it's just like smash everything. He doesn't really talk at all. He just smashes everything. Where if you've read Planet Hulk and things like that, Planet Hulk, World War Hulk, he spends basically the entire series in Hulk mode. Like, there's really no Bruce Banner at all. And he's really like... there's more like nuances to his character than just smash everything. Like, it's a much deeper look into the Hulk, and that's what I kind of want. I don't know if we'll ever get that. American film goers just see the Hulk and they want him to smash Loki into the ground over and over. So I don't know. It's hard to say. We're definitely going to see a lot more Hulk in the future. He's going to pop up in all sorts of movies and things like that. I don't know if he'll ever get a standalone movie, especially with this whole distribution nonsense. That is not to say that maybe they will partner with Universal to put out one. I mean, they're partnering with Sony for Spider-Man, so... And let's talk about... That was a good segue. I didn't even plan that. Let's talk about Spider-Man. So, as you well know, or maybe you don't, the Amazing Spider-Man is not a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe because it was put out by Sony, and Sony and Marvel are not the same company yet. So the Amazing Spider-Man has absolutely nothing to do with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is why we don't see Thor flying through New York or anything like that. And so Marvel's like, we don't like that. We want this to all be kind of one big thing. Because Spider-Man is a fairly big character in the Marvel Universe. I don't know why, but he is. And so... Marvel finally was like, alright, Sony, we're going to sit down. We're going to sit down in a room together. And we're not leaving until Spider-Man is a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And Sony's like, alright, you just pay us a lot of money and we'll make it happen. And that's probably what happened. So, they finally now announced the actor who will be playing the new Spider-Man, and the director who will be directing the next standalone Spider-Man movie. The actor who will be playing Spider-Man is a young man, I think he's 19, named Tom Holland. Now, unless you're really... I don't know. I'm into movies, but I guess I kind of have shit taste, so I guess you can't listen to me. I've never heard of this guy. Some of you listening may have heard of this guy. I apologize if he's one of your favorite young actors and I've offended you. But most people, I think, have never heard of this guy. He's 19. He's done a few movies, I guess, but nothing I've really seen. And, yeah. The important part here is that he's 19. That's really the thing that I mean, they could have picked an unknown, whatever. But the fact that he's 19, that's what I want to talk about. They've said, okay. Either I'm wishing that they said, or they actually did say, I'm not sure, that it's not going to be another origin story, because we've had a bunch of those. I think anybody, like, honestly, anybody that is going to see the new Spider-Man movie in theaters, they have to know how Spider-Man originated. Like, they have to. Like, who is going, like, they pass, okay, Tobey Maguire, no, screw that, I'm not seeing that shit. Andrew Garfield, amazing Spider-Man, no, screw that. Wait, Spider-Man, what is this? Who, Tom Holland? Oh, I'm just going, wait, they don't even explain how he became Spider, what is this, like, no, no, that's ridiculous. This is the same person that I guess would see Independence Day Resurgence and thinks it's an original movie. I don't know. But, so the fact that he's 19, which means he's another teenager. They may push him up to like 21 or something like that. He may be a college student, something like that. But he's going to be young. And it's just kind of... I'm not a huge fan of Spider-Man. I'm going to put it out there. I mean, I've seen all the Spider-Man movies. I like them. I'm okay with Spider-Man, but... I don't know. It's always just so samey. Like, I know the comics do different things with Spider-Man, because they have to. There's all sorts of different stuff going on with Spider-Man. But the movies, it's always been just the same kind of shit. He's young, and he's in school, and he's Peter Parker, and he takes pictures, but he's Spider-Man. He's so snarky, and it's just I don't know. It gets old. So, Spider-Man's a tough property at this point, I think. I know there's a bunch of fans, and of course I'll see anything Spider-Man, so I'll see anything whatever in the comic book universe, so I guess it doesn't really matter, but I just wish they went for, in my dream, well, I guess in my dream world it'd be The Rock playing Spider-Man, but in my other dream world, I guess it would be Donald Glover. And he would be playing, like, Miles. He would be playing, like, the alternate Spider-Man. And they'd be doing something a little bit different, where he's a bit older. He's, like, 28 or, 30 or something like that. But he's still kind of doing the Spider-Man thing. And he's still kind of snarky, but he's a bit more cynical. And, he's not just a young kid first experiencing powers. And we're going to mix him in with... Tony Stark, and he's just going to be kind of the little rugrat of the group, and it's just going to be like, I don't know. I'm not crazy about it. But I have no say in the matter. The next standalone Spider-Man movie is going to be directed by John Watts. Who? He directed a movie recently, apparently called Cop Car, which has been, according to this article, it has been making the film festival rounds. Okay. I guess it's that movie is a gritty thriller starring Kevin Bacon as a rogue police officer tormenting a couple of young kids for joyriding in a cop car. Okay. Before that, he directed a movie last year, or released last year, called Clown, which is about a guy. I've not seen this movie, surprisingly. I've not seen this movie. It's about a guy who, his kid is having a birthday party, and he finds, like, a clown suit. He puts it on only to find out that it possesses whoever wears it into becoming a murderer, who I guess also eats little children. And I saw that movie back when it was called Mr. Jingles. No, that's not really the same thing, but probably pretty close. So I may have to watch that movie at some point, although I really freaking hate clowns. But it's such a weird choice. That's such a weird choice. I guess, it's not like he's gonna make Spider-Man into a horror movie. I mean, James Gunn directed Guardians of the Galaxy, and before that he did Slither. And Guardians of the Galaxy, as we all know, is incredible. So, I guess, if you're a good director, you're a good director, but it's just kind of weird. You got this semi-unknown actor playing Spider-Man and a semi-unknown director directing it. But Marvel can really do no wrong, I guess, unless it's a Thor movie. So we'll see how it goes. Now, apparently, this is what I remember, is Asa Butterfield was like the main contender for being the new Spider-Man. And then he was just like thrown out the window. And nobody knows why. Some speculate it's because he bragged publicly that he had like already gotten the part, like he was a shoo-in or something like that. And Marvel was like, wow, go fuck this kid. We're taking this other guy. I don't know if movie executives are that petty or anything. It doesn't seem right. Or maybe there was like a backlash to him being picked. I want Asa Butterfield to play Artemis Fowl, so I want him to be doing that instead of Spider-Man. But I don't know. We'll first see Tom Holland playing Spider-Man in Captain America: Civil War next year. I don't know the filming progress or anything of that for that movie. It's gotta be wrapping or something. Like, these movies have a lot of post-production, so I don't think he'll be in much of Civil War. I would expect like a after credit scene or something like that, but we'll see. And then his standalone movie will be coming out summer of 2017. Yeah, so I guess that's pretty much it for today's Manggcast. We actually went way over what I thought we were going to do. Once again, I am astounded by how much I can talk. As I always say, I get my gift of gab from my mom, and I get my gift of not knowing when to shut up from my dad. Once again, thanks to all the backers on Patreon for funding the Manggcast. I really appreciate it, and I think that the listeners do as well. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully next week we get some more concrete video game news to talk about, but post E3 it's a bit of a lull. And yeah. So, my name is Mang. This has been the Manggcast for June 27th, 2015. And I'll see you fine folks next week.